thank you for having me, first and foremost. I certainly enjoy getting out to speak to any groups, and I speak to any of them and every of them. Service organizations, groups such as this. I've talked to Mark's group in Fort Walton before, and it helps us to be able to relay to our citizens everything about your county and our county business and how we can be a better service to you as our citizens. So I certainly welcome the opportunity. I'll tell you a little about me. I'm a lifelong resident of Okaloosa County. My mom taught school in the school system here for over 40 years. My dad's retired military, retired out of Hurlburt, and so I went through the entire school system. I started at the old Fort Walton Beach Elementary School, and where the school board office is now. And my mom taught elementary school at Evans Elementary, so I started there in Bruner, and Fort Walton Beach High School is where I graduated from. I did my undergraduate work at, started at OW and received my AA degree, went to University of West Florida where I got my undergrad degree, and then eventually on to Florida State where I did some of my master's work and earned my graduate certificate in city county management. I've been involved in local government here in this county for over 30 years. I started my career in '86 in Mariester, a little town in Mariester. Had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and they offered me a job and put a shovel in my hand when I showed up, and when that didn't scare me off, they made me their water system superintendent, and I ran that for a while. I was ultimately their public works director. I spent 10 years there, left there in the mid-90s, went to Fort Walton Beach where I spent 14 years as operations manager and ultimately as utilities director. And I was fortunate to be able to go to the county in 2010 as a public works director, and that's where I started with the county as public works. Did that for a few years. We had a county administrator that decided to retire a little early on us, and they tabbed me to sit in the administrator slot, unbeknownst to me what I was getting into, and now I've been doing that for almost, well, I guess about 2.5 years. So, you know, I tell you all this to let you know I'm one of y'all. I'm not somebody that was hired from out of the area, that was brought in as a hired gun to make changes, to have no connection with the citizens here. I've got no shortage of people that will tell me if I'm doing a good job or not. And that starts with my mom and dad. So rest assured, if they feel like I'm not serving the best interests of the citizens of this county, they're going to let me know. I'm very proud of the work we do. I want to spend just a few minutes talking about our budget and what you can expect from a budget perspective going forward with this county. We have an aggregate millage rate in this county of 3.572 mills. So to put that in perspective, there are 67 counties in the state of Florida. Of those 67 counties, only 2 counties have a millage below 4. That's us and Monroe County. And if you don't know where Monroe County is, that's the Florida Keys. Monroe County did a little bit of a rollback last year. They are 5/100ths of a tenth lower than us, but I understand they actually are proposing a millage increase this year, so they will creep back ahead of us, and Okaloosa County will again have the lowest millage rate in the state of Florida. I don't really believe there's a comparison between what we do here and what Monroe County does. Our budget, our total budget in this county across all funds is about $370 million. So that includes your property taxes, your enterprise funds, water and sewer, your tourism development department, the solid waste fund, our airports department. So all of those monies combined are about $370 million. Of that $370 million, about $56 million of that is tied to property taxes. To give you a perspective, Monroe County is about, I think there are about 77,000 people in Monroe County. There's 200,000 in Okaloosa County. Monroe County collects over $80 million in property taxes. Their total budget is $460 million. So their budget is $90 million greater than Okaloosa County's. So that gives you an idea of property values in Monroe County compared to property values in Okaloosa County. So they have a millage rate that's similar to ours, but they have a lot more that they're working with as far as the property values there and what they collect by property taxes. In addition, They have a local option 1 cent sales tax and a local option half-cent sales tax. We do not leverage sales tax in this county. They have franchise fees in that county. They're making do with a lot more resources, a lot more financial resources than we do in this county here. That's something you as citizens can be very proud of, because when you look at this county as a model of efficiency, I don't think you can find anybody else in this state that does it more efficiently than your county here in Okaloosa, and the numbers prove that. But it's tough. It's tough to make that work. You have a lot of competing interests in this county. We're 1,000 square miles. We stretch from the state line all the way to the Gulf, and east and west are our county, Santa Rosa and Walton counties. So 1,000 square miles, we have roughly 1,000 miles of roadway. And we have to maintain all of that, all of the associated infrastructure. I want to draw a comparison back to Monroe County again. Monroe County basically is the Florida Keys. Mainland Monroe County has very little population. Most of it is Everglades. Their road system is 300-something miles compared to our road network here of 1,000 miles. So again, we're doing a lot more with a lot less resource in here, and that's important to us. It's important to me as your administrator that we keep that tax burden low. We have not pitched a tax increase to this county tied to property taxes in my time as your county administrator. That's important to me. That's important to your Board of County Commissioners. It is something that we aim for each year when we develop the budget. We're able to do all that and still take care of a lot of pressing capital needs. We built a new administrative complex in Shalimar. We've been in that building for, I guess, about a year and a half. We were able to do that because we have a lot of debt to leverage. We do not have a big tax or debt burden in this county. So we were able to not only secure long-term bond debt for that building, but we also, because of our debt to revenue ratio, we actually increased our bond rating in this county from a AA- to a AA. So the bond rating agencies recognize that this county is doing things right. We're poised for growth. We have a huge military presence in this county. We have strong tourism, and because of that, the rating agencies have reflected that in our bond rate, which is very important to this county. But we've been able to complete some of those projects: the South County Courthouse, the admin building, what you see going up just up the road in the Crestview Courthouse here. We were able to do that without asking the citizens of this county for any more money by way of property tax increase. We were able to do that because we manage our dollars wisely, and we have sufficient revenue coming in, our tax-based revenue from the state, to support the additional debt associated with that building. So that's hugely important to us going forward. I will tell you that the things that are important to me as your administrator, important to this county, are future economic development. How do we build on our strong military? How do we build on our strong tourism numbers in this county? What is the third leg of that stool? And we think we are poised for prime industrial commercial development in this county, and that's going to be right in the midsection of the county, right along that I-10 US 90 corridor. That's where we're best poised for future development. You have thousands of acres east of here in the Shoal River Ranch that's untapped. We have entertained several large commercial industrial developments that are looking at that site. You're talking about bringing in hundreds of jobs to this county. We also have our Bob Sykes Airport here in Crestview, which is a jewel of a facility. The county owns roughly 1,000 acres in and around Bob Sykes Airport. That's land we control. That's land we can make available for Department of Defense contractors, for industrial sites. We went through a Malcolm Sweeney certification. That's a certification that we worked through Gulf Power and through industry leaders for a site certification that tells people in the industry, we're ready for you, we have the infrastructure in place to bring you on board. We went through that certification about 2 years ago and received that. What we're doing with Forest Parkway, which is the road off Highway 90 connecting into the airport, that's in design now. We have just completed Fairchild Road, that dirt to pave project, so many of you know that live up here. About a half of Fairchild was paved, and the other half was dirt that ties into Airport Road. We've completed that project, so again, that's important to industry because now they have a paved corridor into the east side of the airfield. So those are areas that we really concentrate on our budget, sinking resources into future development, infrastructure expansion, expanding water and sewer out to Shoal River Ranch, capacity improvements with the roadway. Holt Industrial Park on the west side of that 90 I-10 corridor is also another area that we're looking at. We've expanded conduit into that industrial park so we could get fiber optic into there to attract other industries and developments into that area in the west side of the county. So I mention all that because that is our key. That is our key focus going forward, is how do we posture for the development of additional industry and commercial development here in Okaloosa County. Where are we most primed to do that? And where we're most primed to do it is right here in the Crestview area along that corridor. So that's a big focus. It's a focus for me. It's a focus for our boards. You'll see that in our budget this year. The other issue that's pressing for us is our county jail. And some of you I've talked to before in other meetings, you've heard me talk about this. It's not an issue of we have a choice whether we're going to do anything about the jail. Statutorily in the state of Florida, the counties are responsible for housing inmates pre-disposition. So what that says is someone's been arrested, they've been taken off the street, they've been put in the jail, and they're waiting on the court system to either adjudicate them or move them on to the next phase of incarceration in a state prison. We have the responsibility to house those inmates until the judge has rendered a decision where that inmate's concerned. In some cases, those inmates can stay in that jail up to 3 years. We don't have a choice with that. That is our statutory responsibility. And one or two things will happen. Either we'll be proactive and we'll plan for the expansion of our jail, or if we do not do that and that population continues to climb, we're just a lawsuit away from the courts forcing us to do that. And that's unfortunate. A lot of people don't understand that. The average citizen on the street doesn't understand that. They just think, hey, they're in jail because they were bad. We shouldn't give them anything. We shouldn't do anything. We don't have a choice. The state of Florida dictates that the counties bear that responsibility. Our jail has a capacity of about 594 inmates, I believe it is. So just under 600 inmates. This week, our population in that jail was 800 inmates. So we are well above our carrying capacity of that jail. So we have inmates crammed 3 and 4 into a cell. We have them in common areas. We, at some point, have to address the expansion of that jail. And I will tell you, jail construction is not cheap. You drive by a jail and you look at it and it's concrete and steel and you think, man, that can't be much. It doesn't look like anything. A jail has to be built to withstand the people in it having the desire to not be there and want to get out. You can't build it like you would your home. Those people do not want to be there, and they are going to be destructive. They're going to be a distraction the entire time they're in there. And if there's a way to tear it up, they're going to find a way to tear it up. So you have pre-stressed, poured-in-place concrete walls. You have reinforced steel. You have an extensive security and monitoring system in a jail. The cost for an incarcerated inmate runs about $110 a day is what it costs us to keep an inmate in our jail. Versus a mental health treatment facility. If we had a mental health treatment facility, because I will tell you, if you look at the numbers, roughly half of the people that are put in jail have a mental health issue. And if we had a stabilization center where we could stabilize those individuals, get them on medications, get them the treatment they need, that construction is much less expensive. That construction is about, or that cost for that inmate is about $17 a day versus over $100 a day for somebody that's in a jail. So what we did this year was we went to the legislature and we said, hey, there's a program out there, Miami-Dade has it, Orlando area has it, Orange County. It is a mental health diversion program, mental health diversion pilot program. Those were the two initial counties that were included in that pilot program. We appealed to the legislature last year to be included. Unfortunately, did not get included. We appealed again this year. Representative Ponder led the charge for us, and we did get included in that pilot program. We didn't get any corresponding funding this year. That funding got line item vetoed by the governor, but we are in the pilot program now, and we remain hopeful that next year we'll receive some funding. So our plan is to take our jail site, and we have to expand that jail site to make a somewhere in the neighborhood of a 50 to 100 bed facility for mental health crisis stabilization, because we can build that so much cheaper than we can a true jail. But the day's coming where we have to address that. And you know, right now, again, we try and maximize efficiencies. I think our folks do an outstanding job with the revenue that we have coming in, maintaining a high level of service. I'll tell you, you look at our counties east and west of us, the counties east and west of us cannot boast the level of service you get in this county. They just can't. They do not have a series of, or a system of 3 airports like we do here in Okaloosa County. They do not have a robust water and sewer utility. And the counties east and west of us, in Escambia County, I'll use an example. The airport in Escambia County, Pensacola Airport, is the city of Pensacola's airport. It's not Escambia County's. Santa Rosa and Walton County do not have a water and sewer utility. We are a full-service, multi-dimensional county in that we have an expansion of services that you do not see in every county. Just our system of airports, I mentioned we have a 3-airport system in this county. We have VPS, which is our Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport, our commercial air carrier, and then we have Bob Sykes, which is a general aviation airport, and we have Destin Executive, which is another general aviation airport. We have seen tremendous growth in that airport system. Just what we've done in the past year with bringing Allegiant in, we've grown from 5 departure cities to I think we're at 26 now. We have our airport folks have hit a home run out there with Allegiant and Glow and Contour Airlines, in addition to our legacy airlines that operate out of there. Our revenue in that department has grown somewhere around, I think the last count was about 18% over last year. And that's before we added the new destination cities this month. So I expect that number to grow. Tourism numbers through the roof. Your counties east and west of us here in the northern Gulf Coast cannot boast the growth numbers we have in our county with our tourism numbers since 2010. So post Deepwater Horizon. Since 2010, our numbers for revenue growth tied to the bed tax have been roughly double-digit each year since 2010. Nobody else can claim those numbers in the northern Gulf Coast. So you have a healthy tourism industry here in Okaloosa County. Those numbers, again, have over those years have probably averaged somewhere in the neighborhood of 10-11% growth each year. So tourism is strong. What we've got to focus on is what can we do better? What's the other leg of that 3-legged stool? And I contend that the area we need to look at is this corridor in the midsection of the county, and that's what we're focused on going forward. I think I've covered a lot of stuff, so you know, I do want to mention one thing before I open it up to questioning is PG Adams Antioch. That's something that is important to all of us. I will tell you, the bulk of my life before I moved up to the north end of the county 3 years ago was in the Fort Walton Beach area. People in the Fort Walton Beach area want to complain about traffic and traffic congestion. When I became Public Works Director in 2010 and my office was here in Crestview, I said those people have nothing to complain about. The true issue, the #1 traffic priority in this county is centered right here in Crestview in the I-10 Highway 85 US 90 interchange. That is the #1 traffic concern we have as a Public Works Department here in this county. And our efforts since 2010 have been focused on fixing that problem. I will tell you, when I started, the PG Adams Antioch alignment was not on the TPO's radar. And the TPO is the Transportation Planning Organization. There are several of them throughout the state. They are the organizations that are charged with prioritizing state transportation needs. So if you want a state highway system transportation project funded, you have to route it through the TPO. You have to get a TPO priority for that project to ultimately make the funding list. 2010, 2011, it wasn't on the radar. 123 was not on the radar. I had to go to our commissioners and tell our commissioners, hey, you guys got to show up at these TPO meetings. The money is going to Escambia County and the money is going to Walton County, and we need to get our share. And so they showed up in force for about the next year and convinced the TPO that we had priorities here in Okaloosa County. And now you see 123 today is just a couple of weeks away from being done. That was not on DOT's list of capacity improvements in 2010, 2011. So we made a real stink of it here locally with our TPO to the point that we were able to move that priority funding up. P.J. Adams was a different animal, and it was different because P.J. Adams Antioch is a county road. It's not a state road. It was not in the strategic intermodal system, what we refer to as the SIS system, which is the state's network, roadway network, and prioritization for roadway projects is the project has to be an SIS roadway. With P.J. Adams Antioch being a county roadway, they had it nowhere on their list. So we appealed to the state and said, hey guys, we got a problem here and you've got a bigger problem. The interchange here in Crestview, the I-10 interchange, in our district of DOT, which stretches from the state line in Escambia County to essentially Tallahassee, which is the panhandle region of the state. There are 16 or 17 interstate interchanges. The interchange that's closest to a level of service F or failure is the Crestview interchange. So in all of those interchanges along that corridor of I-10 from the state line to Tallahassee, the interchange that's closest to a failure level is the Crestview interchange. And we all know why that is, because we have traffic converging on us from 85, we have traffic converging on us from 189 and Highway 4, and then you have the interstate dump onto South 85. So you essentially have two east-west routes, and you have two northern routes dumping on one 4-lane connector to the south end of the county. And they're coming to visit our beaches. I mean, that's why they're coming here. So we were able to convince DOT that this road's important to you because your mission needs to be getting traffic off of 85 directed around Crestview and dumping that traffic onto 85 southbound. We were very fortunate in about the 2011 time frame that we were able to convince DOT of the importance of that western bypass around Crestview to relieve the congestion they were seeing on 85 and Interstate 10 and Highway 90. That project has gotten considerable funding from DOT in the last 5 years. Just this past year, they threw $1 million at us, matched by $1 million of our local money. Prior to that, collectively, we've seen probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $5 million, and I don't know the exact number of dollars that DOT has dedicated to that project. Where in 2011, if you would have asked me, I would have told you P.J. Adams was a 25-year fix, that it would not be done in my time with the county. It's a $100 million project, and we don't have $100 million to dedicate to one roadway. Our road budget's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $10 million a year to cover 1,000 miles of roadway. So you can do the math. That project's not going to get done anytime soon. DOT has recognized that importance. They're putting money into that program. The design is virtually complete from South 85 to the I-10 overpass. We're in the process of right-of-way acquisition now, so we're working with the property owners to secure the right-of-way we need. That project is going to happen, and it's going to happen much sooner than what we thought. I suspect you're going to see the initial segment from 85 to the I-10 overpass done within the next 5 years, with money in hand and programmed for the northern leg of that back to 90. And furthermore, I think you'll see the state come forward with dollars to connect it from 90 back to the north end 85. So a true western bypass around Crestview, connecting 85 to the south to 85 to the north. The state has been a very good partner with that. So that project's happening, and it's happening at a much quicker rate than we expected 5 or 6 years ago. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at as far as capacity improvements. Obviously, we think a good portion of our budget is geared toward improvement of the roadway network in the north end of the county. There's this misconception that's out there that, oh, the county spends the bulk of their money in the south end of the county with all the roads down there. I assure you that's not even close to the case. 75% of our budget or better is spent in the north end of the county because that's where the biggest need is. We have 200 miles of dirt road in this county. All of those 200 miles of dirt road are north of the reservation. It costs roughly $1 million to pave a mile of road through a virgin alignment. It's not cheap. So the bulk of our heavy construction dollars are programmed in the north end of the county. Essentially all we do in the south end of the county is overlay wore out asphalt roadway. So, you know, the majority of it is centered here in the Crestview north to the state line area. Matter of fact, we had an issue in front of our commission last week, I believe it was, where we're providing assistance to the city of Laurel Hill. They've got dollars they want to sink into some stormwater projects in Laurel Hill. What they lack is equipment and manpower to do it. So that's a good partnership we've enjoyed over the years, where as the city has made dollars available to buy the materials, they approach us about, can you help us out? We will fit them into our work schedule. So I think we've got, what, 4 or 5 projects up there, Scott, that we're looking at?
Yeah, we've got 8 in the priority list, and I think you're on 4 or 5 of the 8 that are priority roads. So,
and that's something we can do. I mean, that's not a hard cost to me. I've got roughly 100 people in my road department and all the associated equipment. I got to put those guys to work every day. So whether they're doing projects for us or doing partnerships with cities like Laurel Hill and some of the other smaller communities, certainly when we can do that and where we can fit that work in, we are happy to do that. We're all one county. There's 9 municipalities in Okaloosa County, but we're all Okaloosa County residents. So certainly from our perspective and my perspective as your administrator, we want to help where we can.
Tell us about the courthouse.
What do you want to know about it? Should be done July of next year, but I will tell you, I don't want to get too excited about it, but they are well ahead of pace. We've been fortunate up until the last couple of weeks. We've had some wet weather the last couple of weeks, but we have had fairly good weather patterns since they started that project. They're ahead of pace, but you know, this is Florida. We get stuck in one of these periods like we're in now, where we get these consistent thunder showers. They will shut that construction crew down, and those project schedules have a way of working out in the end. But right now, things look good, and you know, that's something that I think all of us in the county are going to be proud of, and especially those of us that are in the Crestview area of the county are going to be very proud of. You know, there was a big talk here a few months ago about the alignment and which way it was going to be situated, and you're not going to be able to see it, or you're not going to be able to see it from this vista. Drive by that right now and look at the steel. That is going to be the most prominent feature in Crestview. And I don't care if you're coming down 90, 85, you're going to see it. It is going to be a behemoth of a structure. I think it's about 30% more square footage than what was in the original courthouse. And it's going to be a beautiful addition to downtown Crestview. And it's going to free up a lot of space for us, because we're going to be able to move those judicial functions back in there that we have spread out throughout the county. We have offices spread out all over Crestview because of the people who were displaced from the courthouse. So the clerks across the street in the old hospital, which forced us to take our HR department and risk management and move them down to Old Bethel. Once that's complete, we'll move all the clerks' function back in there. I think that's going to take care of our space needs with the county for the foreseeable future. It's going to open up additional space in the old hospital and in the Bracken building where my Crestview office is located, which is the old bank building on Wilson Street, the 3-story building there on Wilson Street. So we'll move some of the clerk function that's in that building to the courthouse, which will free up some administrative space for me in that building. So yeah, man, we're excited about it. It's going to be a beautiful building, and it's going to be the feature of this city for hopefully the next 50 years. We'll see. Anything else?
Was there something that had to be done in replacing some concrete at the ground level here recently?
Concrete at the ground level.
No, there was a rumor that there was some concrete that was 2 inches too high?
Oh, they did, yeah. The contractor did have a pour that they missed an elevation target. So unfortunately, that was on the contractor, his mistake, and yeah, they had to correct that. I don't know if it was that, but I mean, even with a building of that size, if you're a tenth or 2/10 out, it just multiplies throughout the entire structure. I don't think it was quite 2 inches, but yeah, they did miss their mark on one of their pour elevations, so they had to rework that.
You realize it will open on the 100th anniversary of the first one. I use a picture there from the 1918 to the 2018 courthouse.
Well, hopefully we stay on target. You know, I'm just amazed. Drive by there every couple of weeks and to see the progress. I believe they've poured the first floor and they've poured the second floor, so they've done quite a bit of the concrete pours already. So that's yeah, it's going to be a beautiful facility when it's all said and done. Certainly in comparison to what was there, it's going to be a feature for this county and Crestview.
If
Yes,
you
ma'am.
build more jail, will you do the round ones again? What's the capacity?
The round pods were just a feature of jail construction from kind of started and gained popularity in the 70s and through the 80s, and it still is really an efficient structure. I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we're going to look for the most cost-effective jail. There's been talk about looking on that site on the north end of the jail site and possibly going with a standard rectangular 3-story structure, but there's some efficiency loss with that. At the end of the day, we want to get the best bang for the buck and what we can afford within our budget. So it's probably going to be a combination of both, to answer your question. We'll have to go in and renovate the existing pods, the existing round buildings, to bring them up to current code, and then we'll probably construct a new standalone structure on that site.
John, as we're seeing the growth, and if we look at historically what's happened, again, being North County, I like being included with Laurel Hill. Is there any forward thinking right at the moment of what's going to take place with Heritage Plantation? Is now just they're making some big moves. Houses are going up. Property is selling left and right along the 85 corridor. Is there anything that the county's looking at? One of the things that we're lacking further north here is a sewer system. Is there any county looking at possibly a north sewer system?
The problem with that is you have a collection of water and sewer service boundaries. So the area north of Auburn, we don't have the authority to enter that area because what is not covered with Auburn water system is covered with your water system. So it would have to be either a decision made by one of those utilities to go into the sewer business, or that utility would have to be willing to give up the right for that, for the county to step in. The problem we have is it has to be contiguous. For me to expand my operation, I have to have a contiguous boundary. So you would have to have Auburn Water System on board with that. You'd have to have the city of Laurel Hill on board with that for us to be able to expand north of 85. We do have a connection on East 90, and that is the sewer plant that we have that serves Bob Sykes. So we have a sewer plant, a small sewer plant out there on the eastern side of Bob Sykes Industrial Park that services some of the unincorporated area, and we have a tie-in to 90. So our plan is to expand that service down 90 to serve Shoal River Ranch. Because I'm with you. The key to economic development and bringing industry in here is you have to have the infrastructure available to them. You have to have adequate water and sewer infrastructure available. You have to have road capacity and road network infrastructure. We have the added feature of having direct access to rail, and we have an airstrip at Bob Sykes that will land the largest aircraft that flies. Plus you have interstate access. So we have all those ingredients that I think are posturing ourselves for blowing that area out. but it's got to be planned development. We all know the impacts of additional development. I'll tell you, it was a great thing for us several years ago in the last round of BRAC. We increased mission out of Eglin, so we had a net increase of mission out of Eglin. We did have some loss, but we had a net increase with the F-35 program, Joint Strike Fighter, and the 7th Special Forces Group. But all of that added to infrastructure capacity concerns we have in this county. So it was great from us from a perspective that we didn't lose part of our military mission, but it brought in additional burden to our overly taxed infrastructure. So it was more cars on the roadway and more people utilizing water and sewer services. And there was no corresponding money that came in from the federal government with that. So they looked to the local government. They said, okay, you wanted it, you got it, now you plan for it. So that's what I say. It's got to be smart planned development. Certainly we want to see additional industry in this county. We want to see additional commercial development. But we got to be prepared for it.
So, can we get funding from the federal government for that? Is there an avenue for the county, or is it going to have to come through the state to get to the county?
Well, there's two different avenues you can take. There's federal highway money through the federal government, and there's certain U.S. DOT dollars and grant opportunities that are made available to local governments. But you have to tie it to a need. And the burden we carry in this county, I will tell you, is the fact that we do not leverage taxes. And I know none of us want to hear that, but that is a problem, because these granting agencies, they look at Okaloosa County, they look at our municipalities, and they say, well, why are you looking at us for help when you have 6.5 mils of tax leverage available to you that you're not utilizing? So it's a double-edged sword. We keep taxes low because that's what we all want, because it lessens our tax burden. It makes this place attractive to live, work, and play, and that's why we're all here. But when you're chasing federal dollars and state dollars, a lot of times that works against you, because those agencies will say, you guys can control your own destiny. You're sitting there with very low taxes. Add a mill of tax burden to your residents. None of us want to hear that. And in this county, that is what? Somewhere in the low 80s percentage conservative county? I mean, that's the death blow for a politician, and rightfully so. I mean, my charge is to do things efficiently, live within your means, and we do that year over year in the budgets we present to our board, which our board supports. But it does create an additional burden for us, and that it makes it sometimes an uphill climb when you're looking to secure federal grant dollars and federal program dollars. So, to answer your question, Scott, yeah, it's out there. There are programs out there, and we've applied through, whether it was the ARA program back in 2010, the American something Reinvestment Act, the ARA program. We were fortunate that we got some dollars for a project down in Mariester with that. A lot of the Tiger grants, the federal Tiger grants, which are huge construction infrastructure, roadway infrastructure dollars that are channeled through the federal government. We've applied for those for years, and I'll tell you, Florida has not fared well with that program. We have not fared well at all with getting those federal dollars in. They're going to look at depressed economies. They're going to look at depressed areas of the country. That's where they're going to sink those resources.
Yeah, I totally understand what you said. Prior to us getting to Laurel Hill, looking historically, they didn't have a millage rate, like whatever the lowest possibly, and we could not secure a grant. They came back and they said exactly what you said. You're not taking care of yourself, why should we take care of you? In the short end of it. So
we see that a lot on the stormwater side of the house. What we refer to as federal 319 grants, which there are federal dollars that are allocated to the state. The state disperses that to local governments. It's a competitive program. We've applied for those dollars in the past. We were fortunate about 5 years ago. We received our one and only 319 grant that we have ever received. The only way we were able to do that is we partnered with the city of Fort Walton Beach, who has a stormwater utility. Because we do not have a stormwater utility in unincorporated Okaloosa County. You get points for that. In that grant application, you lose 25 points right off the top if you don't have an established stormwater utility. So yeah, what you're talking about is very much the truth, and that's why you see a lot of these federal dollars pumped into depressed areas and depressed economies around our country, is because they feel that's where the biggest need is. I personally view it as, I can't make sense of that. You know, you look at what we do in managing our resources, managing them well, managing our financial affairs, and yet when we look to secure federal grant dollars or state grant dollars, we're handicapped by that. It's tough to make sense of all of it, but you're absolutely right.
So we shift gears if somebody else wants to jump in, but
on the proposed half-cent sales tax between the county and the nine municipalities, I'm pretty sure that the county is poised with a laundry list of projects that they are ready to present to the public if need be. If that comes, if it goes before the board and they approve it, to put it on the ballot. But I'm pretty sure you're poised with a list of projects that you can use the funding for.
Well, our main focus with that, we had that discussion ago, and we were looking at possibly a partnership with the school board on that, and for whatever reason that kind of fell apart there late last year. It's still out there, and it's still something we really need to consider. Personally, I think that's one of the fairest ways to do it. I own property in Okaloosa County. A lot of you own property in Okaloosa County. We don't want to have to shoulder the burden for all the infrastructure needed in this county. This way is more fair in that transients that use our county and tourists that come into our county, they pay a portion of the infrastructure need for Okaloosa County. So personally, I believe it's probably one of the more fair ways to address revenue shortfalls and revenue needs. For us, our focus is going to be on the public safety side of it. The sheriff will tell you that violent crime's on the rise in this county, and he's got the statistics to prove it. He's got roughly a $37 million budget. He got from us, I think, about an 8% increase in his budget last year. The year before, he got somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 or 5% increase in his budget. We recognize the need. I recognize the need as your administrator that, when our citizens rank what their priorities are, what they expect from their local government and their county government, typically every time we run one of those polls, public safety comes out at the top. You want a safe community. You want an EMS system that when you or a loved one have a problem, that you have an ambulance that arrives and a trained professional that's going to take care of your loved one. If there's a crime issue, you want to be able to pick up the phone and call the police or call the sheriff and somebody be there and respond to that. We recognize that. The sheriff will tell you the budget's woefully inadequate. He'll say, we've got a low tax burden in this county. We need to look at taking care of what our needs are, our public safety needs, and we can do that a couple different ways. One of the ways that we can do that is through a half-cent sales tax and take a portion of that money and dedicate it to public safety, to some of his capital needs, whether it's equipment or facilities, be able to channel that money to him to give him some relief of his budget. I've already spent time talking about the jail issue we've got in this county. At some point in the future, we are going to have to address that. And again, either we're going to be proactive and do it, or the courts are going to force us to do it. But at some point, we're going to have to address that. And that, just at a glance, that's a $50 million capital project. So I'll tell you, from some perspective, the main focus would be public safety. The commission would like to see us do something with stormwater as well. Our stormwater capital improvement need, and by that I'm saying the capital infrastructure we have that manages stormwater, which is all the pipe work and storm inlets and curb inlets, and swales and retention ponds. A lot of that system predates any regulation. The federal government did not regulate stormwater treatment until the late 80s. Clean Water Act did not address that initially in the 1970s. It became a federal regulation in the late 80s. So a lot of development that you've seen in this county and across the state since 1990 has to adhere to a stormwater standard. So the design is better, the materials are better, but you've got a lot of infrastructure in this county that was built before 1990. And what we're finding out is back in those days, when you looked at a piece of topography and you were planning a development on 100 acres, what you wanted to do is get water from point A to point B the fastest and the cheapest. And that's how you plan development. So you put substandard materials in the ground and you just made sure you got the water off this property so you could sell homes with no care whatsoever where that water went, just as long as it got off of that property.
It's called flood thy neighbor.
and what we have found out that we use corrugated steel pipe, bituminous coated corrugated steel pipe. And in the south end of the county, where a lot of that is tidally influenced, and you're walling that water back up and forth into that steel pipe, I can take you to miles of pipe down there where the water sits in that pipe, and at the water line, the pipe is gone. Top of the pipe is fine, the bottom of the pipe is fine, but the rest of it's gone. That's our burden. I mean, that's our responsibility to maintain. Latest count, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of a $60 million capital improvement need for our stormwater system, but really very little way to pay for it. I've got a small MSTU, a municipal services taxing unit allocation that was tied to our parks. We carved out some additional MSTU dollars a few years ago for stormwater, but that amounts to about $850,000 to $900,000 a year. Just the salaries and operation and maintenance costs for that division alone is $1.1 million. So we're not taking enough money in to even satisfy what our basic divisional cost is for that system and that division. So yeah, that's the other part of it, is public safety, stormwater. Those are our primary needs that we would look to probably tap those half-cent sales tax dollars.
Now, the reason I'm asking for the folks here, of course, most of them have more history than I've been in locally, but if we want this to pass, hearing from the county, that's absolutely outstanding, because our citizens need to know that their money is going to be used properly. It's not going to be to fund a bunch of additional jobs, or I hate to even bring it up here in Crestview, but a dog park or a swimming pool. I'm this year on the board of the Okaloosa League of Cities president. We had a meeting on Monday, and I stressed to the cities that showed up, which was all but one because he was on jury duty, that if we want this to taste good to our citizens, all the way across, is that we need to propose what our capital needs are going to be so that they understand that it's going to serve them. And hearing what you just said, I feel that the county is going to come through full force. Now it's just having 9 cities come through and say, this is where we would spend those additional tax dollars.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Because, I think what our citizens don't want to see is they don't want to see local government using this as a mechanism to grow government, to add more people. We have shown since 2007, when the economy nosedived and tanked and we cut 100 positions out, we didn't drop the level of service. So we have shown that, hey, we can do things more efficiently. I think you're right. I think what the public wants to see is, if we're going to go down this road and we're going to collect this tax, what are we getting for it? And that's where we can focus on things like public safety and stormwater, and true tangible stuff that you can get your hands around that are improving our quality of life. That's something I think citizens can get behind. But you're right, municipalities got to be on board with that. They got to be on board with that, and it's up to all of us to sell that to the community. Yes, sir.
my understanding, you're right, if we pass that half-cent sales tax, none of that money is going to roads and bridges. It's going to stormwater and safety, all of it.
I'm not saying that. I think you would see some of that money potentially earmarked for what we're trying to do with PJ Adams and Antioch to advance that project. But you have in this county a local option gas tax. So we leverage a local option gas tax in Okaloosa County. We collect 6 cents, what we refer to as the first local option. We have what we refer to as the 9th cent, which is really the 7th cent. And then we have up to 5 more additional pennies for a second local option. We leverage 3 of those pennies. So collectively, that's 10 pennies of gas tax that we leverage locally, and those dollars can only be used for the roadway network. That's the dollars we pump into our road system here. 1,000 miles of roadway. So if we want to pave a mile of road in the north end of the county, north of Auburn or adjacent to Laurel Hill, we utilize those dollars for that. If we want to overlay roadway throughout this county, so you've got an asphalt that's falling apart, we need to put more asphalt on top of it. We use those dollars for that. We use some of those dollars for part of our stormwater program. A roadway is stormwater conveyance. When water falls on a roadway, the road conveys the stormwater. So any piping associated with the roadway, we can utilize those dollars for that. It funds all of that, all of the associated people and equipment that it takes to manage our road system. That is our biggest division here in Okaloosa County. Our biggest division outside of 140 odd correctional officers. There's 100 people just in our road division. And then I can tell you, a crane is not cheap. My front loader is not cheap. It takes that heavy equipment to manage the roadway system here in Okaloosa County. But we utilize those dollars for that purpose. And we supplement some of that with general fund dollars as well.
So the on that gas tax would definitely help also. Again, most of us understand the ad valorem tax and that it's not the fairest tax out there because of certain things. You get so much for homestead exemption, you get so much for disability, you got elderly, all that. So that it was talked about on, what night was that? We did that Tuesday night. I can't keep my Thursday. Thank you. Thursday was at 2 cents, and again, that's something I think that. I don't want to see our taxes go up, but we don't have the largest income. And that gas tax, since it is for the roads, that would be a definite way to go. Off the top of your head, what per se is the number, what is our tourism count? Like I've heard different things of, say, this half cent that if projected we could someplace around 20 million a year, that anything from 30 to 40% is going to be funded because of tourism and the dollars that they spend. Is that what you about?
It depends on what statistics you look at. I had always felt like that figure was somewhere around 40%. When we were going through this exercise last year, and we had the Haas Center folks, which are the University of West Florida. They're that statistical arm of West Florida that provides us a lot of demographic data. They felt like that number was closer to 30%. So they felt it was a little lower than what we'd always estimated at, somewhere around 40%. But yeah, it's going to be somewhere around 30 to 40% of that would be borne by transients and tourists. And not necessarily those, it's not borne on the backs of specifically and only those of us that are property owners in Okaloosa County. That's the difference with that, as opposed to property tax.
I've manipulated enough of your time, I guess.
No, I'm happy to talk about this stuff.
One quick question. One quick question. You said you were talking about a bypass on the west side. What happened to the bypass they were going to put on the east side? And wouldn't that help your Bob Sykes Airport and all that? Because it would be right there. Walton County has done great down at that end.
We haven't given up on that. But I will tell you that that one's going to be a tougher nut to crack. And the reason why is not a lack of desire on our part, it's the mission impact. It's the mission impact. When we approached Eglin about that years ago, they were less supportive of an eastern bypass around Crestview because of the mission impact to the range in Duke Field. It's not to say that that can't happen. We just have to have a better alliance with the military and Eglin specifically, and ensure that that development's done right where it's not a mission impact. But again, when we went through that exercise years ago, we ran into much less resistance for that western bypass route around. Now, there was some talk years ago about taking off from Rattlesnake Bluff Road and maybe reestablishing the old Holt Wright Road and crossing there, or tying that back in to Antioch, or excuse me, yeah, to Antioch Road north of the interstate. There's still some talk about that.
Infrastructure-wise, if you were mentioning Shoal River Ranch for big industry and things of that nature, I mean, those could bring a lot of tax dollars in. A bypass hitting, what is that, 393? Be ideal. I mean, you're hitting all that farmland. It'd be easier to get the right-of-ways, you know, I would think. Except for Shoal River Ranch, that would be your battle.
And that was the real stumbling block. Because in order to bend that route far enough to the east to tie in with 393 like you're talking about, you have impacts to Eglin's range, and you're going to have to cut across Shoal River Ranch to make that happen. That's less of an issue. The real issue is the mission impact. And Eglin just, they were uneasy with that. It's not to say, again, that we can't continue to explore that. We actually looked at shifting that route a little further back to the west, and actually taking off maybe Airman's Memorial off Live Oak Church Road, utilizing that as the route, tying that into possibly Okaloosa Lane and bringing that back into 90.
I mean, evacuation route, everything would all tie in to that side easier, you would think.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's where we're going to have to be, is we're going to have a circuitous eastern and western bypass around Crestview, much like they had to do with Opp and other areas.
Well, Dorcas welcomes you.
Yeah. So. I mean, don't give up on that. The initial push and top priority is getting that western bypass funded and built. But I think you'll see some talk about that as we move forward.
Thursday night, Jason mentioned the possibility of a new interchange that can handle more capacity east of Antioch, and also Raspberry Road being part of that crossover parallel to I-10 between 85 and over to Antioch.
Yeah, that's been some of the additional talk. Looks like we're on track to get our western bypass around Crestview, at least connecting 85 to 90, which that was the first initial goal. Is there a way that we can tie that in to alleviate further traffic off 85, and that would be that Raspberry Road connector off of tying that into Arena Road somehow, dumping that back in over by Lowe's and in that area. That's a component of that certainly is. We were able to get some encouraging news from DOT last month. They made a presentation to the board. We always thought that interchange there at Antioch and PJ Adams was going to be difficult because of the proximity. You have two multifamily developments on either corner, and you have a residential development on the other corner, and then you have a school on the other corner. Well, how do you make that work with the typical cloverleaf arrangement for an interchange? DOT has some thoughts on how to make that work within the existing constraints, and there's a way to do that. It's good that DOT's talking about that, because they haven't been talking about that up until recently. So that shows you the importance to them to intercept some of that eastbound traffic on I-10 and get them off and on 85 before they get to the main interchange there at 85 in Crestview. So yeah, I think you'll see that as part of that project. Now, whether it's there or whether it's further to the east, that remains to be seen. Anything else?
I want to make a statement. The other night, I heard it Thursday at the end. About the dog parks, the Crestview dog park has got a penny tax dollar in it. It's all donated. We had a $62,000 donation, and the rest of it's been fundraising. And I'm not saying you, but I've heard others say it.
Yeah,
But there's no city money in that taxes.
in Crestview.
Right.
Yeah, understood, there is no dollars.
Right.
It's just, that's a very rough thing to sell. And again, historically, in the past, and no cities will be mentioned, but when they throw it in there that, hey, if we do this increase, these are some of the capital improvements, and swimming pools and dog parks don't appeal to people to raise your taxes. So John's statement, I mean, I've said it numerous times, there's three things that we as a government, and a few of us that are in here, is safety, security, and infrastructure. That should be our focus. I mean, everything else is an afterthought, you know, parks and recreation, and, you know, I don't want to hit Little League, but, you know, those things, they cost a lot of money with very little use per population numbers. When we need roads and we need water, those are very important. The EMS system is huge. That's a very important system, so.
I think you would have a extremely difficult, if not impossible, job of selling that half-cent gas tax. I mean, half-cent sales tax. If it didn't impose roads and bridges, I think that's got to be first on the list, because people understand public safety and they want it. But I think we can poll the people and say, "Would you rather have more cops on the street, or you rather have more roads?" And I just think that we're going to have trouble getting that passed.
I certainly appreciate it. And I appreciate that perspective, and it's on us to educate the public as to what our dollars are, what our dollar sources are, and what they can be used for. I mean, I still get people that tell me all the time, you know, you're bringing in $19 million in your tourism development fund. Take that money and build roads. You know, we statutorily we are very restricted in what we can do with those dollars. Same thing with the airport. We're growing the airport. Revenues are great in the airport. I can't take airport money and build roads. That's what we've got to do a better job at of informing the public is, yeah, you see our budget and you see that staggering number of $370 million. That is made up of so many different colors of money that are restricted as to their use. Bottom line is you're looking at $56 million in property tax dollars that fund all of our general fund expenses. So everything outside of those enterprise funds has to compete for that. Of that $56 million, the sheriff's budget alone is $36 million. So I agree with you, and that's why I think we have to posture this in such a way that we are taking care of pressing infrastructure needs that the residents of this county want. Those are public safety needs. Yes, I agree with you that roadway infrastructure has to be a part of that discussion. And we've got a project we can all get our hands around, which is congestion in Crestview, and how do we relieve that congestion? We can pump money into PJ Adams to advance that project. I think that's something our commissioners are behind and they'll support. Stormwater's another problem. You know, nobody thinks about stormwater when we've gone through periods like we have for the first half of this year where it's been relatively dry weather. But let this trend continue that we've been in for the last 2 weeks, and I guarantee you it's important to people. And that's a life, health, safety issue that is our responsibility to address.
Sales tax on it is what the school board did in the late 1990s. You know, they put together, I don't know how many $1 million it was for capital improvement. And they laid it out and showed you why they needed, what they're going to do with it. They had schedules of what they were going to spend, why they were going to spend it, and all that kind of stuff. And then they went out and sold citizens that this was needed, and they had a plan to go get it done. So, you know, good luck.
You know what the last penny sales tax in this county, when it was and what it was used for? It was in the late 80s, and it was for jail expansion. It was for expansion of the jail. It was expanded. It was expanded through the use of the local option sales tax.
I thought that the school system.
I'm not talking about the school system. I'm talking about that penny that the Board of County Commissioners, the last time they've had a local option sales tax that was successful, was for that.
Well, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. The school board, and that's something else that a lot of people don't understand. We are separate taxing entities. The school board is a standalone taxing entity. I don't know how many of you look at your trim bill, but when you get your trim bill this summer, take a look at it. I can tell you, I know what my county taxes are, and I know where my county taxes stack up on my bill with all the other taxes. School board has two different taxes. They have a state school tax and their local school tax that they control. Those taxes are much more than your local option taxes, your local property taxes. And understandably so. They have the burden of providing the infrastructure and the educators that are needed in this county to teach our students, and that is not cheap as well. But they are a separate taxing entity. The school board could make a decision next month that we're going to stand up a referendum for a 1-cent sales tax for a school infrastructure expansion project, and they do that independent of the Board of County Commissioners. That's out of our control. We're a separate taxing entity.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying, the way that they sold it, they got over 60% of the vote.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
I mean, that's important to people. You know, when you've got crumbling infrastructure and crumbling schools and overcapacity school system, that's important to citizens. It's important to parents.
I think I have enough confidence in the citizens of this county if it gets explained to them what is needed. And they have a good feel that whoever's going to get this sales tax increase, they have a good plan to implement this. I got confidence that they'll vote for it. Now, they're not going to very many people vote if the school board or the county comes up and says, we want a 1% sales tax and we're going to figure out how to spend it when we get it. I mean, no.
That's the wrong message. You got to have a plan.
Yeah.
You got to have a solid plan that has to be communicated. You're absolutely right. I totally agree with that.
Have we got a new TDC director yet?
We're recruiting right now. We've got an interim TDC director for about the next 6 or 8 weeks. And we're going through the recruiting process, and we plan to make a recommendation to the board. I think August 5th is our target date for selecting that candidate. So yeah, soon that should happen.
Well, John, we certainly appreciate it.
Not a problem. Hey, like I said, I'd love to do this.
We just enjoy what you say. We appreciate the update. We're glad to know that you're a Crestview person.
Do I?
We're glad to know that you're a Crestview person.
Well, actually, I live about halfway between Holt and Baker, so I live on the periphery. But I moved up here. Yeah, it's like my guys in Public Works say. At least you live north of the river.
You might like it if that 189 old road went back across the river to get down to.
Yeah, it'd be pretty good for me just hop across the bridge there. But
Except for all the bullets flying out there.
again, that's something you got to get Eglin support for, and maybe down the road we'll keep working toward
On the
that.
topic of Dukefield, many folks may not realize there's a lot more nighttime activity going with the F-35 and the Marine version. They've got their own little extra get up and down strips sitting down there, and they want to fly with night goggles coming out during night training.
That was the problem with that eastern route,
Yeah.
was the approach into Duke Field and their nighttime missions. That's what's held that one up.
And the J-Loose agreement pretty well has some.
That's right.
On both sides of Crestview.
That's right.
You
No,
live
I
there.
don't think the county should be surprised if we start hearing talk by the end of the year of another break.
Yeah.
This new Secretary of Defense now has been told to go figure out how to make the Defense Department much more economic. And if anybody's got too much infrastructure, it's the Defense Department. You know, I know I'll step on a lot of toes, but I can't understand why the Navy needs to train helicopter pilots over here in the building. And the Army trains them up here in Alabama, and the Army trains thousands of them, and the Navy trains hundreds of them, and that's a 35-minute flight in a helicopter. Why do we need two facilities?
You need to run for Congress or Senate.
No, I want to keep what little sanity I have.
Well, that's politics.
But you're gonna see, I think you're gonna see, this brag is gonna be a real brag, and they're gonna take the politics out of it. Now, this county has probably more than 50% of the special operations people in the world. Now, I just got a funny feeling that this next brag is going to bring much more special operations emphasis to this area.
I mean, look, we're in an area that's highly dependent on the military and DoD support. And that's the main economic driver. And certainly, we embrace that here in this county. But I'll tell you, I got a tough enough job managing this county and this budget here. I'll let the feds deal with their issues.
Another 15,000 soldiers out there right now.
Well, he said, let the feds figure out the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, we have a facility here that can't be duplicated inside the Department of Defense. And, you know, that's the Eglin Range, and that's the draw. And all the associated munitions testing that go on here and munitions development, you know, I think you won't see that mission leave Eglin. You're right. The key is going to be the special operations component of the mission here, and will we see further growth of that? I don't know. We'll see. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
I certainly appreciate you coming.
I always look forward to it. Thank you.